Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order on October 12th, Thursday at 6:24. Roll call, please. Trustee Cavanero? Trustee Brown?
Here.
Trustee Rudolph?
Here.
Trustee Fapua?
Next to you.
Trustee Albiana? Here. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We'll go to item 3, approval of the agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Item 4, public comment. Are there any public comments?
Yes, we have one comment from Sarah Gamara.
All right. Sir, Tamara, yeah.
It's a little different. There's no podium. Can I be heard by the mic? Okay. All right. Hello, school board members. I'm Sarah Gamara, president of Bayshore Teachers Association. I'd like to express my thanks to Brandy McZee, who's not here tonight. She is our principal, for her collaboration during the first few months of school. She and I have had standing meetings each month where we discuss issues, both negative and positive, that are affecting union members. And in each of our meetings so far, Brandy has listened to teachers' needs and responded reasonably and proactively. I look forward to continuing this collaboration between BTA and the administrative team so that together the staff can keep creating a positive learning environment for students at Bayshore. So thank you, Brandy, and thank you, board, for your time.
Tamara? Are there any other public comments?
None.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 6, consent items. I'd like to entertain a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. And we'll go to item number 5, report. I'm sorry. Number 5, going to report out a closed session. The board took action on the comprehensive school safety plan, non-public. The board voted 3-0 to approve. And then moving on to item 7, educational services. Item 7A, I'll turn that over to Superintendent Veal.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just read the summary that's in the agenda. Districts are responsible for updating their safety plans each year. There are 2 parts to a safety plan. Part 1 is the public safety facing document, and that is approved in open session. Part 2 is a private facing document approved in closed session, and you voted 3-0 to approve that. So thank you very much. Normally, the safety plan is reviewed and approved in the spring, but we have updated it due to staffing changes and other process updates. So I am asking that you approve the safety plan, the public-facing safety plan before you. There is a requirement that districts submit their approved plans to the county office by mid-October. So we would be meeting that deadline.
Great, thank you. Are there any comments? Otherwise, I'd like to entertain a motion and a second.
Motion. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And we're going to move along to item 7B. This is the San Mateo County of Education LCAP approval letter. I'll turn this over to Superintendent Veal.
Yes, so this is more just a public formality. Every year, the county superintendent is required to approve a district's LCAP if it's determined that the following criteria has been met. So the first criteria is that the LCAP adheres to the template adopted by the State Board of Education, that the budget includes expenditures sufficient to supplement the specific actions and strategies in the LCAP, that the LCAP adheres to the expenditure requirements for funds apportioned on the basis of the number and concentration of unduplicated pupils, and that the LCAP includes the required calculations to determine whether there is carryover requirement, and if applicable, includes a description of the planned uses of the specific funds and a description of how the planned uses are to be considered as contributing towards meeting the increased and improved services requirement. So attached to the board agenda is the approval letter that President Avalana received from the county office September 15th. So that was the day after our September board meeting, which is why we didn't acknowledge this at the September board meeting. But I just wanted to show that the county has approved our LCAP, the 22-23 LCAP.
Great, thank you. And moving along to item 9A, we have a presentation from Greg Isom, and I'll turn that over back to Superintendent Veal.
Yes. Hi, Greg. Thank you for joining us. Just to give some context to this presentation, and so the public knows. So those of you who were able to hear our board meetings last year, there is a growing interest of our trustees to make sure that Bayshore School is able to meet the needs of all the students who live in our district. And there's a concern that with the development in our district, that we take a proactive stance in making sure we have the capability to expand in whatever capacity that means in the coming years. So we have one development the Midway development that has 5 phases to be completed over the course of the next 5 to 7 years. The first phase of which is in the process of being completed. We have the Baylands, which I was recently informed that within 7 years, we will have the land that is being dedicated for a potential school site for our district. So the land will be available to us. And we have other developments in the area that have not started, but could potentially have an impact on our enrollment. And so when I was meeting with Greg Isom, he has partnered with us in the past to inform us about our parcel tax and bond capabilities, and was also helpful in leading us through the process of getting the bonds to build our current site. So I asked Greg to come back to be able to share some important information with us for the trustees to consider how to move forward in the coming years with potential parcel or bond opportunities.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that introduction. And also thank you so much for allowing me to do this, remotely. I had my daughter got sick from school today. I have 4 kids all going to public schools, which means that my house is like a gigantic scientific petri dish. So everyone's always constantly getting sick at my house. But excited to be here. I assume you guys can all hear me. Give a thumbs up if you can hear me. Excellent. So I'm Greg Isom with Isom Advisors. I've been working with the district now for over 10 years, where we did the 2 bonds, did the parcel taxes. As your superintendent mentioned, we were kind of just talking about life, and I was just kind of explaining how bonds and parcel taxes work, because you guys just recently had your parcel tax. And she began asking questions about, well, what are we ever supposed to do if we need additional space? How do we do that? Do we have to do loans, or this option? I said, well, something to consider is, are bonds, because how bonds work, it's based off of the growth that occurs within the district's boundaries. And when the tax base gets larger, you're able to actually kind of ask voters for a lot of money. So if you want to just kind of jump to page 3, if you could. Perfect, right there. So since we actually did your first bond, your tax base has pretty much almost doubled, okay? On the right-hand side, you can see that's the history of the district when it comes to its bonds. You guys did a $6 million bond in 2014. Originally, at one point, it was just going to say, let's just kind of, modernize some of our classrooms. And then, we went a little bit further down, and I think you guys had some architect and developer said, well, what happens if we did it this way and we, sold the property and we needed some additional money. So we actually did another bond in 2016 to get additional funds. And what's impressive is that your bond in 2014, that was the highest voter approved bond in the state of California. And then the one in 2016, I think was like the second highest bond in California. So your voters have been super supportive when it comes to supporting the tax measures, also through their parcel taxes. From the 2016 bond, you can see on that kind of second bullet point, it says district has approximately 2.6 million. So what happens is when you pass a bond and you sell it, and kind of don't always have to sell your bond money. It can sit up on a shelf for when it's needed. And if you guys recall, you guys had some state funds that were coming through. So we actually did like a bridge loan backed by the bond, just in case the state money didn't come through. State money came through, paid off that bond, and you still now have $2.6 million in unsold bonds from 2016. So it's just sitting on a shelf. No one's paying on it. And you guys just have the authority to sell it whenever you want to. Okay. That third bullet where it says the combined tax rate is $36.10 per 100,000 assessed value. So if there's some people who are listening who don't understand how bonds work, bonds are strictly based off of the assessed value within the boundaries of the school district. And every single person, whether you're a homeowner, whether you are a business owner and you own property there, everyone has a different assessed value, but they all have the same tax rate. So the bond tax rate is $36.10 per 100,000 of assessed value, which means that if you are some senior citizen who's been living in your home for 50 years, you're probably paying $36. Your home's probably assessed at 100. Even though the market value is $500,000, you only pay off the assessed. So that person's paying $36. Someone who just bought some big old fancy home, up on the hills, and it's assessed at $1 million, that person is paying $360 a year to pay back the bonds. Okay. But what's kind of cool about your district is that when we did the bond in 2014 and we did the bond in 2016, the tax rate was estimated to be $30 for each bond election. So your bond tax rate should be $60 per 100,000 of assessed value. Well, the reason why it's not $60 and it's $36 is because you've had such great tax-based growth. You've had new homes coming in. And so when there's new homes come in, that has made the pie bigger. And so when the pie gets bigger and the tax base gets bigger, everyone's tax rates kind of shrink. And so that's why when I was talking to your superintendent, I said, well, something to consider would be doing a bond, because if you're going to have potentially all this new growth coming in with all this new, construction and building, you can actually go to your voters and ask for a bond. And while it's $30 right now, by the time some of the stuff's built out and let's say your tax base doubles in size again, well, guess what? All those other people who are moving in are the ones who are going to be paying the vast majority of that bond. And they're going to be paying into your old bonds as well for 2014 and 16. Okay. So if you go to the next page, so this is how much is right now, how much your district, if they wanted to just do a bond using that $30 tax rate, because $30 is the maximum that you can ask your voters to approve under Prop 39. Okay. Parcel taxes is where you can ask for anything that you want. Bonds, you're capped at a tax rate of $30 per 100,000 of assessed value. And if you're to do a bond right now, that would generate $12.5 million. Now, that doesn't mean that, this is the other thing when I talked to your superintendent, I said, there's the power of the presidential election year. Because so many things pass in the presidential election year. Everyone comes out to vote. Everyone's super happy generally with people and they like schools. But just because you pass a bond, your voters pass it, all they're doing is they're giving you the authority to sell that bond amount. So you could pass a bond for $12.5 million and you can say, you know what, we already have that $2.6 million. That's all we need right now in the next 3 years. And if this construction occurs and we need some upfront money really quickly, well, rather than having to wait and say, oh my gosh, this is now happening. Oh man, we really need to do a bond. Well, guess what? sometimes you could only do bonds in even years. And so if something happens where you can't do a bond, well, at least you have some of this money hanging up on the shelf. So you could pass a $30 tax rate, $12.5 million bond, and you could sit on it for 4 years if you wanted to. You don't have to sell it. And if you don't sell anything, then no one is actually being taxed on it either. Okay. And this is using pretty conservative assessed value growth. We're using 3.5%. The last couple of years, you've been averaging closer to 5%. And so, if we wanted to see, we want to be extra careful. We want to be extra conservative. Let's ask for a larger bond amount. We'll use, instead of 3.5%, we'll use 4% or 4.5%. Well, now your bond amount gets to $15 million. Okay. And once again, unless you sell the bond, you're not being taxed on anything. Okay. So let's go to the next page. Next page was when I gave, when I was talking to your staff, I said, this is how parcel taxes work. This is what you guys did in 2022, $96 parcel. This is how much each $25 per parcel equates to. So this was just information that I gave, good information for you guys to have, just handy in case someone asked the question, well, how many parcels do we have in the district? If we want to do something else in the future, what would it amount to? How much would it generate? And that's that page. So if we go to page 7, which is your voter demographics. So this is the political makeup of your community. So you have about close to 3,000 total voters. 56% of your voters are registered as Democrats, 11% Republicans, 79% of them are registered as a permanent absentee voter. And so that's generally how many people will vote by mail. Even though the state of California gives everybody, an absentee ballot, you still have a bunch of voters that will go to the polls. Here's your voting population, where 41% are age 55 and older. Okay, so you're not, it's not like you're Siskiyou County or Shasta County where you're 50% 65 and older. So you got some spring chickens in this group. So on paper, you have very good demographics when it comes to passing tax measures. If you go to the next page is how often do your voters come out to vote? Okay. There's 2 election dates coming up in 2024. There's the March primary, presidential primary. Then there's the November general election. And you can see November of 2020, you guys had 70% of your voters came out to vote. November of 2022, there's the governor's race, which was such a hot race that I don't even remember who Newsom was running against. But odds are you're going to have the same voter turnout in March of 2024 as you did in November of 2022. So probably, as I said, close to 40, let's say, even say 50% of your voters will come out and vote in this primary. And so on page 10, which is the actual timeline, if this is something that the district, wanted to entertain, and you said, we do want to make some expansion, or we want to be ready in case something happened, this is what it would take. There's the board meeting where we say, hey, let's explore and see if this is an option for us. What do we want to do, right? One of the first steps would be, hey, let's do a voter survey. We've done that for every other, election cycle that you guys have done to determine, hey, I think this is going to win. Are voters open to this? Are they open to the tax rate? Are they open to the project? Are they open to, whatever we want to do? So you want to ask the community. And then if everything looks good, that's where you'd say, well, let's go in March. If things look bad, well, then we know that going to your voters for a bond is not a viable solution whatsoever. If the survey comes back and it's in the middle, you say, well, maybe March is too soon, and let's, punt it. Maybe we go in November of 2024. As I said, there's a lot of possibilities for you guys. I think the number one question is this something that you guys want to entertain? Is this, do you have facility needs? Where if someone said, why are you guys doing a bond? Well, this is why we're thinking about doing a bond, because we always wanted to add this. We didn't have enough money from when we did the new school. We always wanted this, but we don't have space for it, or, we ran out of money. So maybe you need something additional. So these are kind of the steps. Everything, if you wanted to go in March, has to be turned in by December 8th, 88 days before election day. So you'd either do the board meeting in November. If you have a board meeting before December 8th, you can do a special board meeting. The world is your oyster right now. And then election day, as you can kind of see, March 5th, 2024. And then, depending on how positive the survey looked, if we're going to March, that means that your survey is probably super positive, which would mean that we probably don't really need to run a campaign, because we didn't really, do much for the campaign for the parcel tax. The very first bond I can remember, I brought my how old was my daughter? She was 6. I remember we were walking the streets, and there were some pretty high streets, and my daughter was pretty gassed by the end of it of knocking doors. But I can guarantee you, she easily netted 5 votes because my wife put her hair in some cute little ponytail. But the bond in 2016, it was so positive. We knew that we didn't really need to do anything, so we didn't do any precinct walks. We didn't do phone mix. We just kind of sent out some campaign literature, some vote yes and some smiley pics of some kids. And then, as I said, assuming everything looks good, you guys are going to be successful in March. And if you have immediate facility needs, well, you can spend some money. And if you said, let's just sit on it until we really, really need it, until something comes up, you can do that as well. So that is my presentation. I'm open to, any questions that you guys may have about the process, bonds in general, or anything else.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Greg Isom. Does the board have any comments or questions at this time?
None at this time.
Good. I believe you hit on a lot of key points in your presentation. I think there's a lot of information to consider, and therefore we will, make sure that we have these discussions with our superintendent, and definitely hope we can move forward. As we know, the growth of this community is growing rapidly.
Yep.
And we do have to be proactive in a sense. But I appreciate all the information that you provided in your presentation, and we hope to see you soon again.
Great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Bye.
All right, we're going to move along here to item 9B, approval of board policy 6158, independent study. Are there any comments? Otherwise, I'd like to open this and ask for a motion in a second, please.
Motion to approve policy 6158, independent study.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we'll move to 9C, approval of administration regulation of policy 6158. This regulation, board policy 6158, is in the order to reflect recent changes in the law, AB 130. If there are any comments, I'll also entertain a motion in a second to approve.
A motion to approve regulation 6158, independent study.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. And we'll move to item 11A, strategic planning update. I'll turn this over to Superintendent Veal.
Okay, thank you. So this report is going to serve as a foundation for future conversations. Mr. Dyson, do you want me to start advancing? Okay, great. Okay, this is fancy. All right, so what I want to do tonight is just give an overview of the alignment of the work that we're doing. So if you remember, the LCAP is our 3-year focus. So it has, our current LCAP has 4 goals, which I'll go into a little bit more detail. And a lot of our discussion last year was how do we make things explicit, aligned, and purposeful. And so the purpose of my report today tonight is to show you that alignment and build a foundation for our further conversations around our LCAP and strategic planning work. I'm also going to highlight a couple of really fun events that are happening in the next month or 2. So I want to start with this visual. This is a visual that I shared at our last meeting, and we're using this visual to communicate the alignment between our mission at Bayshore Elementary School, which is engage, educate, and empower. The alignment to that mission with the board priorities that we established last year through the strategic planning process, which is communication, relationships, academic excellence, and patience and compassion. And then our focus this year as a school and of the leadership and staff is within those priorities, what we are doing to move our work forward in communication and connections, curriculum and assessment, and the alignment of our work and our social emotional learning. So this slide talks about this alignment between those priorities that I just discussed and our LCAP goals. So you'll see that the first goal is school connectedness we have in our LCAP, and that's to provide a healthy and positive school culture where all students experience supportive learning environments and opportunities that help them learn and thrive in a safe and engaging environment. Now, that's a very broad goal. And it's very difficult to measure something like that unless you start to get granular. So the purpose of our strategic planning process was to start to unpack what that means so that we can focus our work and be intentional and purposeful as we are working to achieve this goal. And so what I've highlighted here are the two priorities, both aligned with the board priorities and our school focus, of what goes into that school connectedness. So it's the communications and connection and the social emotional learning. Now, those areas of focus from the prior slide, which I'll go back to, are continue to be discussed. And that work is going to be led by our leadership team with our staff to really determine what does that work look like year 1, year 2, and year 3. Now, the LCAP, our current LCAP, actually expires at the end of this year. But what we're going to be doing throughout the year is engaging in conversations not only here, but with our leadership team, our staff, and our parent community about what could our goals continue to be as we fine-tune our focus in meeting the students' needs. So while we have these goals now, they're broad and they serve a purpose ongoing. Our second LCAP goal is an academic goal, and that's to increase the academic achievement of all students while closing the opportunity and achievement gaps within our student groups. I've highlighted all 3 areas of board priority and our school focus because all 3 of those are important in order for us to achieve this closing of the achievement gap goal that we have. So communications and connections, curriculum and assessment, and social emotional learning. The idea here is that we need our students to feel safe, to feel cared for, so that they can then be ready to access the information that our teachers are sharing with them and growing their capacity with. And we need to grow our capacity as educators through looking at what the development we're seeing at our students on an ongoing basis. So we're holding ourselves accountable to seeing what it is we're doing in the class, what impact that is happening on our students, and how do we continue to move forward. So that's why all 3 of those areas are highlighted for that particular goal. Then we have a more specific goal focused on reading. So this academic goal is states that by 2024, 75% of our students will be reading at grade level as measured on our local assessments, our local and state assessments. So in terms of literacy, we use Fountas and Pinnell, which is what the F&P stand for. We have iReady diagnostic assessment, and then the SBAC is the CASP test that is summative at the end of the year for 3rd through 8th grade. This particular goal is most directly aligned with our curriculum and assessment focus. So as I said, we will be working ongoing during the year to have conversations and be very more specific and purposeful about what does that work actually look like so that we're moving towards this goal. And then our last LCAP goal is a basic service goal. And that is our intention to provide resources in a physical environment that promote meaningful teaching and learning. And that's more of the general, are we providing a safe environment? Are we making sure that our funding is aligned in all of these areas, but especially to make sure that when students enter our campus, they are safe and in a position to be able to be their best selves for their learning. So I'm hoping that this slide aligns what our focus is with what the LCAP goals were when we established them 2 years ago. I mentioned that the LCAP, these particular goals expire, if you will. So this was a 2021 to 2024 LCAP. So in the process of this year, as we are sunsetting these particular goals, we will be having conversations as a staff and as a community about where our focus should be in the upcoming 3 years, and we will align our work accordingly. So what can we look forward to as we continue to inform our LCAP work this year? So in this next month, at the October school site council meeting, we'll be going over our LCAP, and we'll be going over it in some detail. So our site council will have access to the LCAP, which is on our website. So anyone listening, if you are curious about what our LCAP looks like, you do have access to it. But we'll be going over the purpose of what that document serves and how we are using it to hold ourselves accountable to make sure that our budget aligns with the resources that have been dedicated to each of those 4 areas that I mentioned before. Another part of, I'll go back to the other slide, the curriculum and assessment focus is the PDSA cycle, the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycles that we are engaging with the help of the county office. And in the focus is math. So the idea is that we're building on the work that we did last year. With the new adoption of a math resource, we're going deeper into our practice of understanding our teaching and what is happening at different points throughout the year as we're looking at the data and making instructional decisions. So there are 2 cycles to each of the PDSA cycles. The Plan Do is the first portion of a cycle, and the Study Act is the second portion. Oh, I have a typo. For cycle 1. So that's going to be happening next Wednesday. And then October 25th, the following Wednesday, is a PD to help our teachers continue to understand what our math curriculum provides and how to utilize it with their best understanding. So that's going to happen on the 25th. Both of these are very important practices because they help not only with our staff's understanding of instruction, but also the impact of that instruction. And then the community aspect of our LCAP, we have the opportunity to go and visit a school very close by in San Francisco in Viz Valley, El Dorado School. That has been a community school for several years. And so the idea is that our partnership with our community schools consultant, who is the executive director of the Beacon Initiative, which is the organization that supports community schools in San Francisco, we are going to see a community school in action and to talk to the leadership there about how they went about their needs assessment process and their determination of how best to create a school that serves the community and student needs. So Ms. Chris and Ms. McZee and I will be doing the site visit, I believe next Friday. And then in our November meeting, we will have a deep dive into the data that we have available to us with regards to the local assessments that we've been conducting, and then the CASP, the spring CASP assessment results. So we'll be looking at data more specifically in terms of what it's showing us on the local and state levels. So something to look forward to. Any questions? Oh, wait, no, we're not done. Sorry. Events. This is the fun part. So we have Matilda Jr. under the wonderful direction of Mr. Dyson. So we have performances in December, and info about the about the performance and tickets is r.show/Bayshore Matilda Jr. .com or just Bayshore Matilda Jr. Wonderful. Thank you. And the information's on our website. Mr. Dyson is reserving seats for trustees. So if you are intending on going to one of the performances, please just let him know which one that will be so that he can make sure your seats are there for you. Anything else you want to perhaps add to that, Mr. Dyson? We're good. All right. And then the next event is coming up soon, and that's our Bayshore Block Party. So we're having a cleanup day this weekend from 9 to 12. So anyone who would like to come and help make our campus spotless for our community event, you are more than welcome to come. But that Bayshore Block Party is being coordinated and planned by an incredible group of staff and community members, parents, etc. So my first experience was last year, and I am looking forward to our 80s and 90s theme block party this year. It is October 28th from 11 to 3. And trustees, you are invited to the final planning meeting on October 18th from 4 to 5. I don't know the location for that, but I can get that from Coach Arnold. Some things to look forward to. We have a car meet on Otia Street. There's going to be over 50 or about 53 total organizations and vendors at this block party. There'll be free haircuts. There'll be 8 performances and lawn games provided by our Boys and Girls Club partner. So it is sure to be a fun event. Hope to see everyone there.
Great. Well, thank you for your superintendent reports. Does the board have any questions or comments? No. Awesome. All right, moving to item 12, board member reports. I'll start off at the end. Trustee Brown.
Dr. Brown. Yeah, I just have a few, not a whole folder, but coming up and reflecting on what Mr. Isom said about voting. So there's a healthy democracy voter engagement brainstorm. I've participated in the 2 that were done previous months. So this one is coming up Tuesday, October 17th from 10 a.m. to 12. It's in person. It's in Redwood City at 801 Jefferson Avenue at the Chan Zuckerberg Institute of Community Space. So if anyone's interested in going to that, yeah, that's it.
I've got the report out. No. Ms. Papua?
No.
All right. I just wanted to say, it's been a nice start to the school year so far. It's been exciting to see the staff, the teachers, and everyone in the community. Before coming to this board meeting, I popped my head in at an event that was happening at the community center that the library was having. They had a magic show. They had various projects going on in the rooms and so forth. But it's nice to see us coming together as a community. I'm looking forward to the events that are coming within the next couple of weeks. I'm a huge fan of the block party, and I hope to see everyone there. And that's all I have. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
All right. Well, that said, we'll adjourn this regular meeting at 7:03. Thank you very much. Thank you.